Hello, everybody. It is Rebecca here, the founder of Soul Cups. And we had such a successful campaign over the month of July for Plastic Free July in our Sustainable Speaker Series that we have decided to turn this Sustainable Speaker Series permanent. It is now becoming an official running episode where I get to interview thought leaders, brands, and inspiring people in the space of sustainability and business and mindset and all of that wonderful stuff in between. So I'm super delighted for our first official episode of our Sustainable Speaker Series. I'll be joined by Heaven, the founder of Bodhi restaurant. Amongst many other things, Heaven's going to inspire us today with a bit of a chat about culture and business and sustainability and plant-based food, and obviously the hospitality industry and what that journey has been like for her. So I will get her to join us into the chat so that she can do the talking instead of me and run us through an amazing background and story. So hopefully she pops on any second now. Hey.
Hi.
Hello. So nice to see you. I
Nice
wish we were in person.
I know. I'm like, yay, no technical difficulties. I'm super impressed.
Me too. Honestly, my Wi-Fi has been dropping in and out all day. So amazing. Nice to talk to you. Thank you for joining me.
I know, thanks.
I have a list of a million questions,
Go.
but before we do that and before we bombard you, your restaurant is such an incredible business that you've created. So for those of you that maybe don't know you, the wonderful person behind this business, can you give us a little bit of an intro, especially about your family history? It's so interesting. So just give us a bit of that background world, if that's okay with you.
I think you know a little bit about family history and businesses and stuff like that. Because before I start, we'll say that I've actually met your brother.
Of course you have.
Yes, through hospitality work and stuff like that. So, anyway, I will dive in.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it
off air. So Bodhi restaurant, basically, it's been around for about 33 years. We started in 1988, so it's a multi-generational business. My family were involved before me. Now it's just me, and we had about 7 venues across Sydney, I guess. So restaurants, cafes, homeware, all of them within the plant-based space. And then I kind of took over the reins around 2000 and cut a lot of the other businesses off because I felt like I needed to just really focus on the flagship of what we did really, really well, which was restaurants and food. So we've just been proudly feeding people plant-based food for donkey's years.
But let's talk about that rich family history, because it's beautiful and it's incredible that it is innately within you. But it does start somewhere, right? Like what is that story? Because for those that maybe don't know or understand what it means, can you dive into that a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I think it all started, my grandfather had been in hospitality, nothing to do with plant-based. And for my mum, she had what she would like to call her Oprah aha moment, or her spiritual epiphany kind of thing. So, she had a day, she was in Chinatown. We had offices in Chinatown. She was working in a completely different industry, and she met a monk and they got talking, and he introduced her to vegetarianism, as you do. She was looking for somewhere to eat. She walked into a restaurant she'd never seen before. It was a very small, tiny vegetarian restaurant. I think it was the only one of its kind in Chinatown. And there was a monk there, and they started chatting, and she was like, what's vegetarianism? Like, I don't even know what that means. And so he kind of explained the philosophy behind that. And I think for her, it was like this veil was lifted, and she was like, oh my gosh, what I'm choosing to eat, what I'm choosing to sustain myself, is it necessary? Number one. And number two, does it cause suffering to anything else for my personal pleasure? Different if it's for survival, but in this case, it's, what you enjoy to eat. And so she came home literally that afternoon and just threw everything out of the fridge. It was all gone. And I'm there, 12 years old, going, Mom, what is happening? That's my school lunch.
Literally.
So she threw everything away. And so that was a big adjustment for us to go, from, having meat around the house to having none. But not so much for me, because I was never a big meat eater anyway, which luckily it was a much easier transition. But that's kind of how we got started with the veganism and vegetarianism. And then from there, I guess when you do become vegetarian, especially in the 80s, there's nowhere to eat. There's nothing available for you to go out and have dinner with friends and all of that kind of stuff. So being the sort of entrepreneurial mind that my mother has, she's like, I see a need. My mom is not a great cook. It will always surprise people to know she's actually a really not the best cook in the world. I need somebody who can cook with us and somewhere for my family to eat and all of that sort of stuff. So she kind of put two and two together, and literally across the road from her office went, there's an empty space. I'm going to open a restaurant in Chinatown. And that's kind of how we started.
I mean, incredible, because I think it's that mindset, it's that understanding, that holistic approach to everything that also leads and paves the way into the world of sustainability, right? Like, I know that you've got a little bit of history there in your younger years of being quite an activist. I know you did a lot around that world, which we can touch on, and you can enlighten us with a little bit, but it's all intrinsically linked. And what I do want to talk about at some point is, oh, nice cup, is
I got my little coffee in my soul cup,
is the hospitality industry. So this world is deeply unsustainable. It's
100%.
So much waste. And as you know, obviously my family is involved in hospitality. I grew up in the world of hospitality. So I've never owned a restaurant, but I understand it from the back end, the operational side. And like running a plant-based, sustainable restaurant in Sydney, like that is a tough gig. So talk about it. I want, straight from the mouth, run us through the reality, because I think this is what people don't understand. It's like, it's not just talk.
How long do you have? I mean,
as long as you want.
Look, every business is tough, but I think, and maybe I'm a little biased here, I think hospitality is one of the hardest businesses to get involved in and to be sustainable in long term. Like, there's not a lot of businesses that I know that are still around and trading from when we started up. There's a small handful of us around. And there's a lot of big groups that kind of do end up taking over a lot of restaurants, but it's an incredibly tough industry. I think for us, we had difficulties in this business for multiple reasons. And I'll run through just a couple of them. Number one, it's nonstop. I mean, as you would probably know, you are up early, you are to bed late. Back in the old days, I used to do all of the fruit and veg shopping at Flemington markets. And so, driving a van. So we were really, really hands-on. And then you'd have to go from, 4 o'clock in the morning, you're at the markets, and you'd run all the way through lunch, dinner service, you finish at about 11 o'clock at night. And then you're back in at, 10, 8 o'clock the next morning to start service for the next day. And it's 7 days, and it's a brutal business. I often get a lot of people who come to me and say, I want to open a bar, a cafe, a restaurant, and there's something romantic.
Like, no.
It's something very romantic. And really the statistics of restaurants that survive beyond 5 years is incredibly low. So it's a very tough business. And I always say to them, number one, if you don't have to do it, don't do it. Number two, it has to be your passion. And then number three, be prepared to sacrifice almost everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Family, special occasions, the works. You're not going to attend, you're going to be working, it's your baby sort of thing. And everything else will take a back burner. So it's a tough business as a whole. But there are ways to get around that if you're really that into it. And then I think the difficulty for me personally was a couple of different things. Mostly it was being young and female in a really male dominated industry. That was, without a lot of...
it's still like that. It's still,
100%.
We're still living in that same situation. We can talk about that later. Yeah.
I know. And that's a whole nother thing. And particularly, I think there was a cultural element in that as well, because it's a very male-dominated culture. The Chinese culture can come across as very male-dominated, and particularly within the yum chai industry. That's pretty rough to get involved in. It's almost like dealing, with the mafia sometimes. So, they're pretty...
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, every culture has its thing, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
matter where in the world, and this is a particular one, and it's in hospitality, so it's a tough
yeah.
gig.
So you've got all of these sort of added layers of complexities around sort of having a business sort of thing. But, that's also part of the excitement of what you do. So as much as it's rough and tough, there are definitely days when you feel fantastic about achieving what you achieve.
Absolutely. And run us through, I mean, the whole thing, right? So running a restaurant in general is tough, right?
Yeah.
And with everything that's going on in the world in terms of, obviously we've had a lot of lockdowns and COVID, we've had
Hmm.
this up and down element of, pre-COVID war on waste, where
Oh, yes.
everybody's conscious and sustainable and doing like beautifully. And then we have this downfall and this decline and this level of excuses and laziness and all of this like behavioral changes.
Mm.
What has it been like for you, for someone who's passionate about sustainability, passionate about obviously a holistic approach to hospitality? How
Yeah.
have you coped with it? What are you doing to innovate? What's some advice you can give? I think that's a really big one at this time.
I think the thing that probably bummed me out the most was having to go back to a lot of disposable plastics and all of that kind of stuff within the restaurant from an eco standpoint. And then, of course, there were a couple of things that we were looking at sort of getting involved in around. Sydney City Council had a couple of initiatives that were running around sort of making businesses more eco-friendly and sustainable. And so we were looking at wanting to join some of those programs, and all of that kind of got put on the back burner. And your focus, unfortunately, you end up focusing on the survival of your business. And so sometimes some of these things just can't be front and center because you're thinking about your team and your staff and what they need.
Mm,
I think at this point in stage, the hospitality industry, as we all know, it's incredibly tough because it's this open, close. And, a lot of people have tried to pivot to go to this takeaway model. Um, I've talked to a couple of these businesses, and some of them, it's been great for them because maybe they're in a suburban area. And so people are working more from home. So takeaway from home is not a bad thing. Um, then there are a lot of other restaurants, and we would probably fall into that second, but we're fine as a business, but it's not sustainable for us to open our doors at this point in stage for multiple reasons.
mm,
Part of that has to do with the cost of running a big ship like ours is quite high,
that's
and
right.
you don't want to be operating at bigger losses than you already are operating. So you look for ways to kind of make sure you're operating at the least loss possible.
Yeah,
And then there's also the issue around, customers and staff that work for you. We have a bit of an older team that work for us in the kitchen and so forth. So we want to make sure that they're safe before they come back to work, and whether they feel
absolutely.
comfortable, have had vaccinations, if that's what they want to do. So, there's all of those elements. But I think I know I probably drifted off your question, but I think
We'll
those are
get
the
back
sort of
there.
things. Yeah, those are the sort of things that we've been looking at, whether we open, whether we close, and so forth within the hospitality industry. So it is pretty tough for people out there, but do the maths. Really sit down and try and understand figures wise. Whether it's better for you to continue trading at that loss, or whether it's better for you to trade at a much lower loss if your doors are closed.
Mm,
And watch out for sort of bigger platforms that do delivery services, because they do take quite a lot um,
yeah, yeah.
off your sales sort of thing.
But from a sustainability point of view,
Mm.
like let's talk about takeaway stuff. What products you use to actually serve in, like from quite a literal perspective. Like, for example, when this all happened and COVID sort of hit, there was this overwhelming thought that reusable takeaway cups should be banned, or that they are banned. But actually, if you look at law, legally, there's no law stating anywhere in this country that it's illegal to serve or like, to use reusable takeaway cups, which is quite an interesting debate. I've spoken to so many hospitality owners, and basically they either use it as an excuse or they use it as an opportunity to innovate. So I've got a friend of mine owns a wonderful cafe down the road, and they did like a non contact solution where you pop the reusable cup on the counter, they free pour it in, and like no hands involved. Nobody's
Yeah.
touched anything. Amazing. problem solved, no throwaway, single use takeaway cups are used, happy days. So what's your sort of standpoint in that aspect of sustainability, like with takeaway containers or packaging or reusable cups? Like, how do you feel about what's going on right now? And what do you do personally in Bodhi to actually be sustainable? And also in your personal life, if you can sort of run us through a little bit of your background.
So it's a bit tricky because Bodhi currently is not trading on
Of
a
course.
day-to-day
Yeah,
basis.
yeah.
So, you know, we've had to fall back to when we were doing takeaway for a period of time, or when we even reopen again, there will be a small version of that. We've definitely tried to choose much more sustainable products. So we're heavily relying on cardboards at this point in stage.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there's little things we've also done is that a lot of our dishes we won't do takeaway, especially if it's liquid form and we can't have the kind of containers that will actually survive for people to take home. So maybe our takeaway options have changed. In regards to what you were saying about the coffee cups, I think that's a brilliant idea for people to bring their own. We have customers that like to come to us and bring their own containers. And so we'll just plate it straight up into
Amazing.
their containers for them. And we love that. You know, we highly, highly encourage, if you can bring, please bring, because we're happy to serve it in there. I don't think there's
Mm,
anything wrong with it. I don't think we should be stopped from being able to
exactly.
do things like that. There is too much pollution being created at this point in stage, particularly with COVID in mind, with disposable masks. You know, a lot of our staff, we purchased them all cloth masks so they could keep their own masks, and you know, they're all color matching and it looks good with the uniform, and they can come to work looking beautiful and safe and so forth. A couple of them have used other masks just because they're more comfortable, but you know, there's little things like that that we will try our best to make those little changes. Pre-COVID, we had started looking at reducing plastic waste in the restaurant. So we speak to our suppliers about, please make sure when you're delivering fresh fruit and produce that it's delivered in cardboard boxes. It's not, you know,
Amazing.
wrapped up and so forth, because I'm not going to be getting rid of the waste. And we will switch suppliers. We will happily spend our dollars on suppliers that are willing to kind of meet our needs.
Just
Um,
very quickly on that
yeah,
point, like what I want to emphasize before you move on is the
yeah.
fact that you have the conversation. This is what I
Mm,
want people, what I want to bring awareness to. It's not just talking to yourself, it's going, okay, let's talk to our suppliers. Let's have
yeah,
those conversations, because it's through that conversation that change is possible. And
yeah.
exactly like you said, vote with your dollar. They say no, awesome, I'll go to a different supplier that'll say yes to me.
Yeah,
That's where the
100%.
impact happens. Yeah,
Like, people have to remember, businesses, it's our DNA to make money and to make as much money as possible and lower our costs as much as possible. You know,
yeah.
every company on the planet is pretty much made of that same sort of DNA. So your money, your vote, what you decide to do, how you decide to spend your money is incredibly important. And
That's right.
it's so often we go, oh, but it's just one. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what I do doesn't really make a difference. But we know that when people come together and there starts to, you know, be this sort of mass purchasing of things. I'm trying to think of a good example. Almond milk was not a thing a few years ago. It's now huge. You know, things like that.
Literally.
It
That's
literally
right.
is huge. So we do change the way businesses will operate, even that vegan space that we're currently in. I mean, who would have thought that all of these big chains would be introducing sort of vegan food, you know, a few years ago? But they are, because they can see there's an interest from the consumer and it sells and
That's
it's
right.
doing well. And the more you spend your money on these things, I'm going to break into this sort of little side note. Somebody asked me recently, is it okay to purchase non-vegan, vegan products from a non-vegan company like a Prada or a Gucci or whatever? And I always say, do it, you know, because that actually teaches these companies that there is space for this product, and they will then develop and produce more of these products. And eventually, over time, we hope to see that trend lower for vegan products. And the same goes with
Exactly.
plastic and waste and so forth. Vote with your dollars. It really makes a huge difference.
I couldn't say it better myself. I mean, if you watch back any of the interviews that I've done in the last 6 weeks, this is the same conversation we keep having.
Yeah,
Vote with your dollar, vote with your dollar. One thing from one person every day makes a huge impact. And start within your community.
yeah,
It's that simple context of, like, you have a local coffee shop, go annoy them every day until they do what you want.
Yeah.
And tell your friends to do the same, and tell your parents and your family members and your partner and your brother and your sister, whoever. It you have to act first within your immediate community and make small changes around that circle, and then it exponentially grows, because you show people confidence and energy and passion, and that's contagious in itself. So it all starts with one little conversation, one question, one movement, one swap, one change. Like, it's all one thing. Very quickly, before we move on, somebody's just asked, what do we do in lockdown? So, because they can't use their cups because they're in Melbourne. My answer to that is make your coffee at home. Don't get a takeaway. No cup, no coffee. Yeah, that's my rule. But tell me more about you. Tell me a little bit about your history on sustainability. What journey have you been on in your personal life to get to where you are now, and why are you passionate about being environmentally friendly? What's the story?
It started small, I guess. Having a restaurant of our size, you do get to see that impact of how much is wasted, whether it was from offcuts from food, customer wastage, plastics, just excess sort of packaging that just wasn't necessary. I mean, the amount of stuff restaurants go through and throw away is incredible. So it kind of started there, because I think at home, maybe you don't notice it as much. You've got a small bin, you kind of put it in the bin, that's it, you're done. So it started at the restaurant, and then that kind of leaked into sort of, okay, what about home? What am I doing at home that's working and that's not working?
Yeah.
And for me, it's always going to start with that food space. So can we grow our own food produce? I bought a little veggie pod. In my veggie pod, I grow my own herbs. They're fresh. I don't have to get those little disposable, herb pots from the supermarkets anymore.
Yeah.
It's always there. So little things like that. My kids get involved. They love it. Changing all my products out within my kitchen was a big thing as well. So moving from plastics to silicone to stainless steel to glass. Like, I literally just went through almost the lot, told everybody, if you want this stuff, it's all good, take it. I'm not going to be buying any more of it. So shared it to somebody else, and then purchased all new products that replaced everything. And that was really satisfying as well. And then recently I've kind of been working on that sort of chemical aspect. How do I reduce chemical, usage in my home, and the containers that chemicals come in? I mean, there are so many containers. So trying to reduce that. And then what else have we started looking at? And now it's starting to spread into, it's infectious. Once you start with something, it spreads into the rest of your life. So for me now, I'm looking at the clothing that I buy. Can I have a capsule collection? Do I need to have the next thing that's on trend? Can I just have a beautiful classic wardrobe that's going to work year in, year out? Those sort of things. What am I buying for my kids? The clothes I buy, my gosh, the amount of stuff my kids have and get is incredible. How do I reduce that? And how do I get them to start being more appreciative of the things that they do have as well? That's been a big sort of lesson that they're learning at this point in stage, particularly as I reduce. Their awareness and appreciation is increasing, which I thought was a really nice thing.
It's a beautiful synergy there when you've got young children to educate, because as we know, when we educate, we learn tenfold, right? Like, the more you have to share, the more you have to give, the more you gain. And I think that's such a wonderful experience to go through with the children, because everything you show them, you actually have to then set the example, and you actually have to do it. So that's a great way to hold yourself accountable, is do 100%. It with your family, do it with your kids, do it with your partner, with your friends, someone to connect with and share with. I think that's so important.
And I think the first time you hear one of your kids turn around and say to you, Mum, do we really need to have that? Or I don't know if that's really, environmentally friendly. And you're like, did my 5-year-old just check me? Like, okay, all right.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm bringing up some good little human beings there. So that's always a really nice sort of thing to get that feedback from your kids. And that then also spreads, like you said, within your own community, other mums that your kids go to school with, school counselors, people through social media, customers at the restaurant. I mean, it's infectious. When you are excited and you love what you're doing, you'll see that joy and infectiousness spreads.
Yeah, it transcends, that's the whole point. And I keep saying this, it's a conversation, it's a chat, it's a coffee, it's little moments in your life where you can create positive impact. And that's the entire goal. And, you know, as business owners, we are responsible. That is our civil duty as business owners, as producers of things, to basically create a platform for education, to, you know, if we're blessed with this opportunity to have an audience, we have people who purchase from us, who come to us, who connect to us, and we have an audience to speak to, it is our responsibility to be sharing something beneficial, something of benefit and influence in a positive way. So that's kind of why I really wanted to chat to you, because hospitality is, it's so wasteful. It is disturbingly wasteful. And just like you, I have an exposure to it that most people maybe don't, which is the back end, where you see operationally how things are purchased and processed, and so much food waste happens on a daily basis, and it's just normal for them. It's about, you know, how can we change the game? And I think that's what you're doing. You're setting a standard in that industry.
I don't think a lot of restaurants think it through, sort of thing. And I am seeing a little bit of change, though, interestingly. I mean, recently we started working on zero waste dishes and zero waste cocktails and stuff to add to our, just to experiment with how do we take a food produce and use it, you know, from end to end without any wastage, and then plate that or put that into a cocktail glass for people to enjoy. So that's been a really fun process to go through. I am starting to see other restaurants or bars pick up on that sort of thing. I'm hoping this is the beginning of a wave. So, and the more people go out and purchase from businesses like that.
I think it is.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think, you know, the other thing as well, I think it doesn't hurt when you are changing your home over to become a more eco-friendly home and so forth. Make it look beautiful, like pick out really nice things. Get things like your soul cups, you know, all of that sort of stuff. You've made your products look really gorgeous. And I think that inspires people. You see that, you go, oh, I like that. I could use that. That looks really fantastic. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's really important to sort of make it look beautiful and enjoy what you're doing and minimize. We don't need as much stuff as we think we do.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm like the world's biggest minimalist, if you can be a big minimalist. I really hate stuff. I hate things. I
really
like super simple. Yeah, it's quite funny, especially with clothes. Like I'll wear the same thing. I'm like Steve Jobs. I have a uniform. It's like the same outfit every day. Don't care. Can't overthink it. Because it's too much fluff. Like we just don't need all of that in our life. And exactly like you said, like when I designed and produced Soul Cups, the concept is for those people out there that don't care about sustainability, here's something beautiful.
Yeah.
And for those people that do care about sustainability, this is something of really high quality and you'll appreciate it deeply.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with your restaurants and with your ethos. It's like, you've provided something exceptional. It's a solution. It's holistic. It's sustainable. It's plant-based. It's doing something amazing. It's setting a standard. And for those people that don't understand it, they'll just go and have an amazing meal. Yeah. And for those people that do, they will, you know, they're your tribe. They're the ones that preach. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing.
It's definitely something that we very purposely went out to do, similar to what you've done, which was we wanted to make plant-based food accessible and enjoyable and tasty, and not feel like, oh, I'm having a vegan meal necessarily, or I'm missing out on something. And we always knew that if we could win over everybody else that wasn't in the hardcore vegetarian vegan camp, that, you know, we were heading in the right direction. And I think that's really shown in the demographic of customers. Like when we first started, I would probably say we had about 75% vegetarian vegans. And they would drag the occasional friend who would come kicking and screaming like, oh, do I have to eat vegan food? And now it's so different. It's, I mean, 50-50, sometimes even 60% non-vegetarians and vegans. And the reasons people are coming now is starting to change. Before it used to be only about the animals, and now it's more about animals as well as the environmental impact. You know, we've got people that come in. I had this wonderful gentleman that came in. I met him, and he would come in on a Monday to lunchtime, and we got chatting one day. And he was like, this is my meal that I'm starting with because I'm wanting to be a little bit more sustainable about the food that I eat. I mean, he wasn't interested in vegetarian or vegan food. It was 100% for environmental reasons. So in that way, you know, we're seeing that impact now as well. So yeah, it's been nice to see people coming to us from different reasons.
It's very special. I think exactly like you said, it's becoming more and more evident that this is normalized. People are thinking. That's the point. We're a highly educated in a highly educated time. People are equipped with every kind of piece of information possible. So we are making more conscious consumer decisions, and that's the goal here. The more conscious decisions people make, that vote with that dollar creates an impact. And the more businesses and operators like yourself that exist, that produce things that are wonderful and ethical and sustainable, the more choice those conscious consumers have. So it's a supply and demand aspect, right? We need more people like you, and we need more people making better decisions.
Yeah,
and
ask questions.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I think it is. I think people have to really be inquisitive and ask questions. A lot of us have been told that this is the way we do things because this is how we've always done things, or it's been advertised and marketed to us in that way. We know, you can't survive without cow's milk. That's not necessarily true. You can survive without it. It's a choice.
Definitely.
Sort of thing. So things
That's
like
right.
that, so I think we've been sold a lot as consumers about how we should be doing things. It's been like that for generations. Just because it's been done like that for generations doesn't mean it's always right. Otherwise, we'd be still stuck with women unable to vote sort of thing. So it's okay to evolve and change. Compassion is not a bad thing to have in your repertoire. So ask those questions. Why do I feel like this has always been like this? Does it have to always be like this? Can I do something differently? And if I can, what can I do differently? And how was it done before? Was it done sustainably? How are things farmed? How are things made? Who are the people that make them? These are all of the questions that you really have to ask yourself when you're buying products.
I think that's spot on. That's absolutely the point. It's ask questions. That's the best. That's the statement of the century. Ask questions. Be curious.
And you'll be amazed at what you'll find. Like I mean, even today, still after being plant-based for so many years, I still find products, whether it's in my pantry or, maybe it's a nail polish I bought or whatever. And I'm like, really, it's made of this? I didn't even realize that's an animal product or animal byproduct, or it's produced in, an unenvironmental sort of manner. So those sort of things will always creep in and crop up. So just always ask those questions and always look into things and try and find out how it's made.
Exactly. Like in a world where there is mass production, like it's as simple as that. There is so much stuff in the world. There is so much material being used every single day on a global level. You have to presume that 90% of the general stuff is full of crap, to say it nicely. Like it is what it is. And we as consumers have the ability to make change by voting with the dollar. So read the ingredients, ask questions, be curious, shop local, shop sustainably, attend restaurants and hospitality, that are doing the right thing, and ask those owners questions and be educated. And that's the way forward. That's basically where it needs to go.
We love it when people ask us questions. I'm going to give a good example of that actually, because I think this is
what's the weirdest question? What's the best question or the weirdest question you've ever been asked?
Weird, but it's an example of how it triggers a thought process for businesses like ours. So we have a dish that has Glad wrap over it. It's always been served that way. It has to be served that way. It's food safe. It dries out if you don't cover it in Glad wrap. It's like a rice paper wrap. And we would send it around the tables. The girls have to walk around. So you don't want flies, insects, anything landing on it, all of that sort of stuff, right? And we had a couple of customers. It came up once first, and I sort of went, oh yeah, okay. Didn't really think much about it. But second or third time, somebody said to me, "Do you have to use Glad wrap on that?" Kind of got me thinking, well, do I have to use Glad wrap? And so I think we sent one of our managers on this sort of hunt for the right product to put over it, basically. And he spent weeks trying to find something and ended up finding a type of Glad wrap made from, I think it was from corn or something. I mean, it cost us a fortune to do.
Obviously.
But we were happy to swap it out, basically. So ask businesses questions. Have you thought of, do you, is this done this way for a reason? Or, I've even had customers who've come up and said, what do you use? Like, what paint things are you using on the table for the timbers, the varnishes? Like, I've got this eco-friendly product.
Wow.
We love those conversations. Get invested in our business. We're invested in you and doing well for you. So we encourage those kind of chats from customers. We'll never be offended by it. We're always interested to know what people think and what they say. So it does show that people will change their businesses when they get positive, good feedback. It was done in a
Yeah.
very lovely manner. So there was never any criticism or aggressiveness about it. It was just a simple, do you need to use this product? And have you thought about looking into any other products to swap it out with? And that just triggered a whole lot of change. And now we've taken all plastic Glad wraps out of the restaurant. So, things like that are
Amazing.
important to get from customers as well.
Yeah, what a phenomenal example. That was
Simple.
perfect because it aligns with what we've been saying the whole time, which is have a bloody conversation. Open your
Yeah.
mouth and talk and ask questions and be curious, because it's the same thing. I mentioned there's a local cafe to me, and they're good mates of mine, and they weren't accepting reusables. And it literally took me to walk down there and go, hey, buddy, can we have a 5-minute chat? I'd love to give you some solutions, like,
Yeah.
from a loving place. Like, I've got some options for you if you're open to it. If not, I will see you when this is over.
And they
You know?
happily changed out. They were really,
That's right. Exactly. And it just because it came from a place of love. It came from a place of support, of community, and a solution. That's the
yeah.
point. It's like, if you've got an idea and you're going to question a business and you want them to improve, openly state that first. Be like, I love you guys, but the plastic thing, like, let's let's work on that together.
Well, it's
So how
interesting because
phenomenal. Yeah.
I don't go to I have a little local cafe close to me, and I used to go there, but I don't go there apart from the fact that we're in lockdown and so forth. But I could go and grab a takeaway. I don't go there because they don't allow me to bring my own
Accept
cup.
it.
So it is a
Yeah.
conversation. I've just spoken to you. I'm now going to have this conversation with my local cafe owner. And this is how we spread this message out
Yeah.
and around, amongst each other's communities. So I think that's fantastic.
I mean, that's the thing. There's like, in hospitality, there's a coffee shop around every corner, right? There's cafes everywhere. So if you're local, refuse to listen to you and refuse to be open to innovation or a solution, go to the next one.
Yeah.
Walk down the street, go to the next one. And that's literally, like, I've heard endless stories of people going, but they refuse to even do free pour, and they won't give me the coffee, and no matter what I do. Okay, cool. So tell them you'll see them when lockdown is over and they start accepting again, and you go to their neighbor. And
Yeah.
it sucks, but like, that's the reality of the
It
situation we're
is.
in. Or make the coffee at home, or enjoy your soul cup at home. Like,
Exactly.
there's
Like me.
solutions everywhere. Yeah, there's a solution for everything. That's the
Mm.
mindset. And I think, again, what a wonderful example you've set of taking feedback and then doing something amazing with it and finding such an incredible, innovative solution.
Yeah,
Sensational.
it's not hard. It can be frustrating, but it's not hard and complicated. And when I think about it, you just actually reminded me when my mom used to have her restaurants, like back in the 80s and the 90s, she used to charge people extra if they wanted to use to use the plastic takeaway containers. But if you brought your own container, she would actually just, put the food straight into it. So business can also, teach customers as well, like what's going to be okay and not okay for you get to set the rules. It's your business.
That's the point. That's the point. You set boundaries, you set rules, examples. For so long, we were giving a discount if you brought your own reusable, so why not do it the other way around?
Yeah,
We'll charge you
more.
if, you as a business have to buy it, you have to pay extra for this takeaway container. Well, we can charge it out. Like, that's the point.
No.
It's a whole world. I mean, that's a whole deep conversation we can
Yes.
we can go down. But I am so grateful to chat to you and get to hear a little bit more of your story. But if there's one thing, one message, one piece of advice you can leave everyone with, whether it's personal or in hospitality, just something to inspire us with sustainability and plant-based. Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of it. Like we said, ask those questions. That's where you start. Don't be afraid to make changes and support Australian businesses and local homegrown, and grow your own produce. It's just that one baby step. And from there, hopefully you'll get inspired like I was inspired by so many people around me who have taught me how to live a more environmentally friendly life and sustainable life. And it's not perfect. I think that's probably my best piece of advice I can give today. Don't try and be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. We all have ups and downs on these journeys through sustainability, through veganism, whatever it is that is your path. It's okay. Everything is fine. We will end up where we're meant to be, sort of thing.
I think that's beautiful. That's stunning to end on, because that's what it is. Don't be perfect. Just do one thing and do it
Just do
really
one thing.
well and practice. And if you accidentally do the wrong thing, tomorrow's a new day. Start
It's
again.
okay. Yeah, forgive
Yeah,
yourself. It's not the end of the world. Pick yourself up, get back on that wagon, and just keep working at it and keep trying. It's all a
exactly.
journey, and we're all heading in that direction. So thank you so much
That's
for having me
beautiful.
today.
Thank you. Where can we find you? Give us the little spiel.
Ah,
Where's the restaurant? Where's the Instagram handles? How can we find you just before you run off?
okay, so bodhirestaurant.com.au is the website for the restaurant. It's located in the city in Sydney. So I love having people come in. Always make sure you stop by and say hello. We've got an incredibly friendly team. Follow us on social media and stuff as well. And then for me, I have a little website, heavenly.com.au, where you can sort of see all of my blogs and articles and what we write about, environmentalism, lifestyle, and veganism as well. So I hope to see you all
Amazing.
there.
Absolutely. Thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
such a beautiful chat. I wish you a beautiful evening, and I can't wait to hopefully meet you in person and
Yes,
dine at the restaurant together
I will
and
be
chat
sending you
all
an
things.
invite. Yeah, I will send you an invite. Once we're out of lockdown,
Oh,
come and
can't
have
wait.
yum cha. I will feed you lots and lots of dumplings and we'll have a blast.
I can't wait. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Bye,
Bye.
beautiful.